Hello. Welcome to the Sustainable Education Foundation live stream. My name's Bhanuka, and hopefully this thing is playing because, there we go. It is working. Good. I'm just gonna wait till another one or two of you guys get on and I should be good to go. Trying to find a way, like the best way to answer all the comments that are supposed to come, because I am on my phone because there's something wrong with the camera of my laptop and it's a bit, tilted and okay, everything should be good. So, hey guys, thanks for joining in. Let me give you a small introduction about the video, the live stream, the Q&A, however it's going to work. Basically, it's going to be a 20 to 30 minute session, and what's going to happen is I'm going to be talking about international business development and customer acquisition, and then we'll start cycling around. But before I start talking about it and yapping about this stuff, and before you guys can ask questions, let me give a small introduction about myself for those of you who don't know me. My name's Bhanuka, and I am from a media agency called Surge. Now, I'll give a small introduction. So, I think most of you guys here came from some sort of platform, which means you already probably know me. But those of you who don't, I am 23 years old. I work in the media technology landscape. Basically, a couple of friends of mine and I got together about 4 or 5 years ago. We started playing video games on YouTube, and we were making money through YouTube's advertiser program called YouTube AdSense. It was Google had this thing called MCNs, which are essentially multi-channel networks which let businesses have the ability to monetize other people's content, and we started there. Over the last couple of years, we grew as a business that helped with YouTube monetization to a media agency by transitioning from content monetization to helping other businesses create content. And initially, about 4 years ago when we started, it's actually going to be 4 years on I believe it's the 16th of November, so it's about a couple of weeks away. We started moving away from content monetization to really just making anything like videos, design work, and anyone who was willing to pay us money. And we started a services company. Now, when I say we, it was me and one other person at the time who is still a part of the business. And we basically just went around, pitched for work, and did everything we could to land clients. We didn't really have any sort of specific skill set. We did everything from, like websites to video. And the way we would pick up these skills is by basically going on YouTube and just learning how to do this through YouTube tutorial videos. And it's funny enough, all of these videos are actually available right now for anyone who wants to pick up any of these skill sets, whether it's building a website or running a Facebook ads. It's really all out there if you're willing to take the time and learn. So over the past couple of years, we've gone from doing those one-off jobs to really specializing as a business. So we went from what we did to working with larger scale businesses, and we eventually moved out of work that we did just in Colombo with a 2-man team to now we have, I think, about 35 to 40 people within the organization. And we serve customers across Sri Lanka, the US, and am I sideways? Okay, should I actually rotate my phone? Because I didn't realize this, because I am seeing a completely clear picture of myself, which is funny. Can one of you guys drop a comment, because I can't find this? Okay, I'm going to rotate the phone. I don't know whether that's going to be a good thing or a bad thing, but I'm going to do it anyway. Just let me know if this is any better. Do you guys prefer this, as in me not sideways? Okay, we're off to a great start, guys. Okay. So it's funny. I don't know whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, but it's live. So there's really nothing we can do about it. Okay, now that we're straightened and less tilty, let's do this one more time. Where did I stop? Right, we basically grew out as a business with 35 to 40 people within the organization, and now we're doing what we do. So what I wanted to talk to you guys today about is how we do international business development and how all of that stuff work. If you're in a business that is predominantly a services-based company, how do you utilize that? How do you leverage that? And how do you really generate sales? Because at the end of the day, that's what's really going to move the needle for you if you are a business. So I'll give you a little heads up into how the whole process changed from A, how we started generating sales within the local market, B, how we specialized, 3, how we C, how we told that story, and our current process of business development after our acquisition. Which brings me to my next point. In May, on the 31st of May this year, we were acquired by a large private equity firm called Tavistock. And after that acquisition happened, the way that we started generating sales slightly changed. We started moving towards enterprise, large-scale business, and that's a whole other ballgame. But initially, as a business, the way we really generated sales was literally running ads. So one of the main services that Surge offered as a business was Facebook advertising. And a couple years ago, Facebook advertising was ridiculously cheap, not compared to what we have today. It was a fraction of the cost. And we were under the impression that, if you're selling a product or a service, you can't really go ahead and do that if you don't fundamentally believe in what you're selling. So what we did was we found out services that were very easy to convert. Now, Sri Lanka was a market that was really just maturing and didn't have sophistication around who was selling these services. And we had the edge there because our timing was okay. Because of that, we managed to go ahead into social media management. We priced ourselves low and we found out a segment of the population that was interested in these services. Now, Facebook business basically gives you a lot of insights around target demographics. I remember this number distinctly because at the time, according to Facebook, there were about 86,400 small business owners in Sri Lanka that fit the criteria of who we're trying to advertise. And the reason I remember that number so vividly, I believe that's the number of seconds in a day or something like that. But we basically created some design saying, hey, we'll manage your Facebook ads for you. And we just literally ran it. Of every $20 we spent on ads, we probably got about 3 leads, of which 1 converted. The conversion rate was great, but the value of the products were pretty small. We were selling probably a $200 to $300 per month retainer. And, it was a good start. We were put in front of meetings. We had the ability to talk. Now, the reason I want to stress this so much is because what a lot of people don't understand when it comes to sales cycles is that there are a lot of stages. Now, it's like and for those of you who don't know what a sales cycle is, there is a point when someone does not know about what you do to the point that they sign a check. And for us, that is the end of a sale, from a closure of a sales cycle. And usually in our business is if you don't know what the business is, there's no way you're selling. So the first one is generating awareness. So what we call this is a lead. If someone is interested in what you do, they know that you exist and they inquire about it. That's usually how an engagement starts. From them not knowing about you to you knowing you exist to inquiring about what it is that you do. Now, after that is done, the next stage is usually a follow-up meeting. That could be over the phone, a physical, meetup, or usually it's, a lot of questions get asked here and there. So it's usually a physical meetup. So the sales process usually goes from that lead generated to the meeting to starting negotiations to finalizing an agreement, setting a contract in place, and then once the contract's done, getting sign off and really starting the project. Now, initially, the way we approach this is really trying to skip all of these steps and saying, look, this is the product, go ahead and buy it. But as we moved along and we got better at what we did, we realized that, look, a sales cycle has a lot of steps along the way. And if you're not really trying to optimize on how you can push this sale from one point to the other, you're going to have a tough time going through it. So really what we did was implementing that CRM and really implementing process and structure around what we did so that we could always tell the right message to the right customer at the right point in their decision, whether they are just starting out or they've engaged in multiple conversations with you and other third-party vendors just like you, so you know what to say at the right time. So we did this for a while. We found out that we could sell this, and that's usually really how we got off the bat. Now, after a year or two of really doing social media services and social media management as a service for businesses, we realized a bunch of stuff. One, working with clients became a pain in the ass. And two, we realized that there really wasn't a lot of margin in what we were doing. Now, partly because we were looking at generating customers, but we didn't really qualify whether the customers were a right fit. We had companies that didn't pay us. We had situations where we overcommitted and delivered so much work where at the end of the engagement, there really wasn't much money and margin left. And which brings me to my next topic, which is choosing the right customers. So as a business at the time, this is probably about 2 years in, we were developing capacity within the company. We had people who were designers, people who understood how to write good content, people who could code so that we could build websites. But we haven't really specified the skill sets to the point where we could say, hey guys, we're really good at this one thing. We're really good at running Facebook ads, or we're really good at creating good ad copy. And because of the fact that we weren't able to do that, what ended up happening was we couldn't specialize. And if we couldn't specialize as a business, you can't really charge a premium. And if you can't charge a premium, as long as you're stuck in low margin work, you're going to have a problem attracting talent. So this is probably around the time that we started engaging with a few foreign companies. And the reason we found them was because of the same strategy. We were delivering work at small scales and we were trying to scale up. It wasn't the greatest approach, but we were getting somewhere. Now, the breaking point for us is we realized we were working with a few companies and some of the engagements were going really well as opposed to the others. And these were particularly in the B2B space where companies typically had a higher client value. So say if you're working with a business whose end customer is worth a couple hundred or even a couple $1,000, as opposed to if you're selling a bar of soap where the lifetime value of a customer or the transactional value is very, very low. So we moved into that space, and this included a lot of failure because this means that a lot of engagements that we engaged in were bad. So if we would have 20 active customers at a given point, we realized that 10 of them were pretty meh, about 7 of them were unhappy, and 3 of them were very happy. So it was interesting to us because we were pricing the same product, we were pricing the same service, and we were really doing the same thing. The only difference was the customer, and we found out that there was different types of value that we brought into different customers depending on who they are. So we started playing around that. Now and that's where basically this comes into. We worked with a few international companies. Again, we found them through predominantly Facebook ads, and we met them in weird Facebook forums and groups and all of these stuff. And we ended up getting a really good experience with those businesses, and which is why I wanted to talk about international client development, because the biggest problem that I think companies really face is the fact that they go after sales without really going after what they're good at. So, and because we've gotten burned quite a few times just trying to service markets because we had the capacity rather than realizing what the greatest product market fit was. So getting back to the topic, we worked with a few companies across the US and Canada. They were not large engagements, a couple $100 here and there, but those businesses luckily were growing as well. And we've kind of found out that they were the right companies to work with. They were backed by good people, and they saw what we were doing, and they were pretty grateful at the results that we were generating. So we did what every rational person does at that point, basically reached out to them and said, hey, look, you like what we do, you see value in what we do. How can we do more things for you? Because you're the type of relationship that we enjoy having. And, we want to do more of this stuff. Now, it's interesting because it kind of moved away from the main strategy that we were focusing on, which was, look, we know that Facebook ads, Google ads, and digital marketing as a service works for our customers, and which is what we're selling. But we slowly started deviating from that because we realized for us to be able to get a hold of the ideal customer, it's a longer and more expensive journey along the traditional run Facebook ads model to be able to say, hey, you know what, there's a better way to do this. So we partnered up with these companies that we were already working with. We asked for referrals and we slowly started growing. And what I would say was the most crucial or the most important part after understanding the type of industry we can add the most amount of value to was basically finding the right companies and say, hey, you know what, why don't you recommend us? So here we are, a few years later from that. We've grown from, I would say, handling about a few companies, like 2 companies outside of the country that were paying us a couple $100 to the majority of our revenue coming outside of Sri Lanka. So Surge works across 3 main markets right now, the US, Australia, and Sri Lanka. The reason we are actually working heavily in Australia, I would say, is because one of our main shareholders is an Australian company, which gives us access that we didn't have before. And that's the other thing as well. There's more than one way to skin a cat. So our business development cycle has different strategies. One is, hey, we're going to run ads. We're actually going to do this really heavily after the beginning of next year because and coming back to what I said earlier, we kind of deviated from it, but we're coming back to it because the price range that we offer for our services right now has a much higher margin, so we can afford to go ahead and run ads in these markets. So we're basically in the process of clearing out our messaging on our website to be able to say we are not a Sri Lankan medium-sized agency, but we're a globally competitive agency being able to deliver these services and grow and scale and all of that. So the partnership with our shareholders in Australia was what we were looking for there. And our next push right now that we're going through is we're actually hiring a few business development, we actually call them partnership managers outside of Sri Lanka. So we actually made 2 hires within the business. One person is stationed in Singapore who's helping us in that market. We haven't really done, we have 1 customer in Singapore, but we haven't done a lot of work there. We have another team member that's just joining on the 1st of January from Washington, D.C. And we've set up basically advocates for the business in Seattle and in Nashville. And what's happening is basically they're a base pay plus commission, like an incentive structure for them to go ahead and sell. We can now set those kind of operations up because we've really defined what our core competencies are. During the last 4 years, we went from an agency that did literally everything that you asked us to do to narrowing down to digital marketing as a service. And funny enough, the digital marketing as a service really broke down into 27 different services, from analytics, consultancy to design, and which was obviously a nightmare if you look at hiring someone for sales, because your sales process isn't really structured. So what we did was we moved away from that to be able to say, guys, we do like 6 different things. We do brand and storytelling, or what we call data-driven storytelling. We do social media. We do traffic and conversion. We do content development. We do analytics, and we do marketing app development. So we've really stuck to these 6 core competencies. Right now, we're building a ton of collateral around how the processes work, our pricing models, our structures. And the reason we have to do all of these stuff is because if you are in the business of business development or sales or partnerships or whatever you call it, if you're not the person who's doing it, if you're not really dead on understanding your business. Whoever else is taking control needs to have full visibility, needs to be able to make decisions around partnerships without you being there. And for you to be able to do that, there's a lot of knowledge transfer that needs to happen. And this is a learning process for us as well, because we're really just diving into having remote teams that are dedicated to your business outside of, different parts of the world, really selling for you. And so it's always a learning curve. And now one final thing that we've done to really help, I'd say, supercharge the sales process for Surge is we introduced another program to companies that we've done well with. So one of the ways that we work is we actually manage the media spends of our clients, right? And like I told you guys, some of the customers, we moved away from 3 out of 20 being very happy to a majority of the clients being very happy, because we say no to a lot of companies that don't fit us anymore. What we started doing was after a really good engagement and a company starts working with us and we close off a chapter or we're dialing down on an engagement, we basically say, hey, look, we had an amazing experience working with you. Why don't you, and we already have a retainer with you in terms of your media spend and your budgets. Why don't you go and we have a domain for this, not a domain, like a landing page for this, which is basically www.surge.global/supercharge. And what that is essentially a loyalty program. So if you have had a great experience with us, why don't you recommend Surge to someone in your industry, someone in your field? And remember, the types of companies that we work with are big businesses where the decision makers are C-level executives or small to not even small, like medium-sized business owners. Basically people who have $50,000 to $100,000 a year to spend on just, social media. So their what they say in terms of referral carries a lot of weight. And we don't want to set up a structure where it's someone's just purely giving away referrals for cash. And so because of that, what we did was we basically said, look, the way our loyalty program works is, let's say you have a $5,000 per month retainer with us. Chances are about $2,000 or $1,500, or let's say worst case scenario, $1,000 is really goes directly into ads, whether it's Google ads or Facebook ads. If you recommend us to if it's someone else and they get on a $5,000 retainer, what we'll do is we'll take 10% of whatever their spend is and we'll put it into your media spend without an extra fee. So your results, if you look at it as pure spend, your spend goes up from 5,000 to 5,500. But if you look at your results go up exponentially from, if you're generating 100 leads at basically $1,000 a spend, you basically go to 150 leads, which increases your business value. And you literally see results from a single referral rather than like a couple $100 back. So there's always more incentive for you to start reaching out. And we've done this with a few of our clients in Los Angeles, and we're in the process of acquiring a lot more in those markets. So yeah, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start telling you guys to, start asking all the questions you have, which is probably going to take a bit of time considering there's like close to 50 of you guys here. But I'll, keep on yapping till then. So it's very, very new in terms of how we've really started pushing out in international markets. And because these are enterprise customers, there's a lot of flying in, meeting people, cocktails and golf matches before some of these deals close off. I am flying to Sydney on the 14th of this month, Melbourne on the 18th, and then to Scotland on, I think it's the 26th, where you need those kind of relationships to be built out. Some of these businesses, especially the larger contracts, you need to have some level of physical presence. So whenever you're going into pricing, when you're going into negotiations, you need to be able to say, hey guys, this is the reason that the pricing is the way it is, so that it makes sense. Now, there are some of you guys there. That is a long comment. Wait. Guys, don't ask long questions because I can't check it out. That is not interesting. Asel basically says, big fan of your work since the inspiring talk you gave at Slit. Thank you. Keep the great work up. And there's a few dots and it says see more. Every time there's see more, I cannot click it. If I click it, it basically Facebook tells me I can either like the comment, pin the comment, delete the comment, or block you, which is the exact opposite of what I want to do, which is read it. God damn it, this is... Guys, I'm sorry, but we're going to have to keep the questions like lengthwise short or break it, because Facebook messages, what is wrong with you? Let me try to... Is this a bug? Because Asela just wanted your perspective on the competition as a startup, seeing someone else doing. I don't see anything. Atif, any tips on getting rich fast? Yes, try cocaine. If you can smuggle the right amount at the right speed, you can get rich really quickly. Now, how do you find someone who's a reliable dealer? I don't know. And I have honestly got no idea what I'm talking about. Don't do drugs, kids. Stay in school. Let me try to flip this to see if I can get the comment. It's just... No, it just says I'm not allowed to rotate my phone, which is even worse. Okay, how to boost click-through rates on email marketing campaigns. So there's a bunch of ways. One thing that we do is we found out that majority of the email marketing campaigns that we do don't actually get delivered to people's inboxes because of the amount of emails people get. Little things we've done, like switching from MailChimp to GetResponse, actually reduce bounce rates, because it's funny, these email servers that these large companies have aren't always the most reliable. So I would say just test those stuff out. Majority of the A/B testing you need to worry about is your email getting opened? Right now, industry averages for what we do in a business is about a 25% open rate. But if you do the same list on a remarketing campaign, it goes up so much higher. Just A/B test a lot of stuff usually helps. And once you start identifying how different groups of people connect to different messaging, just life gets a lot easier. Misconceptions people have about entrepreneurship. That is, okay, first of all, Hasita, thank you so much. That is the right length of the question that you can ask so I can see it, which is like 6-7 words, which sucks. Biggest misconception that I would say, people assume that it's really fun and flashy and you make a ton of money and all of that. It's really not. It's a lot of freaking work. You might not be cut out for it. It's not even fun. Right now, it's Sunday, 8:30 p.m. I am here in a room alone, typing away at a computer. That is not necessarily the most glamorous lifestyle. I don't really recommend people to jump onto it. And it's funny for all of us staying here because... I mean, me coming from the background I did is, me coming from the background I had was I didn't really have to worry about financial situations. Like, my parents weren't loaded, but they were by no means poor. So I had the ability to fail. Like, sure, I could have failed and I could have ruined my career or whatnot, but I would never have to put myself into a situation where I wouldn't be able to put food on the table or something like that. So things like that are always interesting because people don't really consider it. And I think in that sense, entrepreneurship is probably a really stupid idea. Which one of the social media is very useful in business promotions? I'd say all of it. Different contexts for different people at different price points. Right now, we run ads across every platform, different platform for different people, obviously. And the way I would, the most common way that we would try to figure this out is by saying, you know what, is this the right way to behave? If your target audience is a 45-year-old woman, the reason that she's on Pinterest is very different from the reason that she's on Instagram to the reason that she's on LinkedIn. So as long as your content that you're serving that person makes sense for that person in that context, you should really be fine. But it's really everything. And that's the beauty about how digital marketing works. You can really test anything you want at a $10-20 ad cost for you to understand what's good, what's not. Now, the problem with doing these $10-20 split ads is that it takes a lot of time and effort. But I feel like if you're trying to figure out the most useful one to promote your business, you're really not worried about the $10 and $20, like not really worried about the time that's taken, but really the money. So I'm just going to assume that you have plenty of time on your hands. Hey Arunada, is email marketing dead? Absolutely not. I'd say majority of our sales, from whether it's Surge or whether it's one from our product portfolio, comes from if the product portfolio comes from email marketing, it just really comes down to what it is that you're trying to achieve. Like, we would never go ahead and shoot an email saying, hey guys, let us charge you $5,000 to build a website. Really not the best way to go ahead and do it. But if you can send the right message, works wonders. You believe in continuous improvement. Could you elaborate? Okay, so continuous improvement, basically it's the same thing, right? Like, if you're not pushing forward as a business, you're falling behind. And if you're not learning as an individual, you are falling behind. I don't think continuous improvement is essentially something that you just strive for and that puts you in the edge. I think if you don't actively try to learn, try to study, you are going to get yourself wrecked. Because the way the world works is things move really fast and you really need to run to stay in the same place. So yeah, it's really how things have moved over the last couple of years. If you weren't continuously improving and honing your craft, you're highly unlikely that you can maintain your position. Okay, now we have a lot of questions coming in, which is a good thing. So please do ask that. Hey Bhanuka, as a digital agency, what kind of strategies that you can take to attract clients outside the country? So this is basically what I was saying. I think the easiest way for especially an agency to start attracting clients outside of the country or even inside the country, it doesn't really matter. I think the first thing is stop looking at them as, international customers and local customers and all of that. It's really who you can add value to. And I'd say the most important thing is niching down and saying you are the number one agency for X, Y, or Z. There are businesses that I know in the US that are the number one digital marketing agencies in the cannabis space. So all the customers are weed shops, and they've really narrowed it down and they've become these massive $1 million organizations because they are the best at what they do. People in that industry come in and join them. Now, the common misconception in that is that you assume because you're the best at one thing, you're not good at everything and you'll lose your other clients that you have. Usually never the case. Usually what happens is people just assume because you're good at something, you're also good at the other thing, and it works quite the opposite way. For us at Surge, we kind of position ourselves as the business that's really good at lead generation, B2B business development, but that doesn't mean we stay out of FMCG or stay out of B2C or whatever it is. So yeah, I would say the number one strategy for any agency is niching down, narrowing your focus, and going really after that for you to acquire your first couple, I'd say even your couple dozen or your first 100 customers, because the markets are massive, guys. How do you guys do SEO? A lot of ways. So there's two parts of this question. One is on-site SEO and two is off-site. I'm going to get the lazy man's answer and then slightly detailed one. The lazy one is that, but it's also the right one, is just write good content, right? Google isn't designed for marketers. It's designed for readers. As long as you create good content that people like to read, you really shouldn't worry about how do you rank, because what people usually end up screwing is they create content that ranks as number one or number two on some obscure keyword which has no relevance to your business, because it's not really the volume of traffic that you generate, but the context in which some consumer or some reader goes into your content, reads that content, and then drives some sort of action. Because like traffic without lead generation or traffic without conversion is absolutely pointless. How to see if the content is relevant for the prospect? Well, I would basically find people who are potential prospects and say, hey, do you guys resonate with this? Yes, no, especially if you don't have traffic. And if you ask people, they would be more than happy to tell you. If you don't want to go through that route, there are tools which help you monitor these stuff. There's a tool called Hotjar. There are tools like Mixpanel that let you literally monitor recordings of your audience to see how they respond to the content that you create. Okay, next question. When you have a good competitor, how would you motivate yourself? Well, there's really one of two things you can do when you have good competitors. One, you can either motivate yourself and start to fight, or you give up and you walk away. So given that you have one of those two options, I guess how could you not motivate yourself would be more of a relevant question. What's next on this space? Okay, next on the space of digital marketing. I don't know. For me, the space of digital marketing has never really changed. It's always been around people who consume content and people who create content, whether it's through an agency, whether it's through a live webinar video like this, or, whatever it is that you do. I just think it's different platforms will come and go, but how you contextualize your messaging and how you resonate with people is essentially what marketing is going to be, and it has been for the last, I don't know how long. Some good content to read from people like Seth Godin, who are really good thought leaders in the space that talk about how these stuff change. And I really recommend reading some of that literature. Okay, what's next? Pulkit Jane, I quoted your take on content distribution and insight a lot in my post for marketing. Thank you, dude. I hope you guys liked it. I actually think I got that. It's not something I invented. It's something the context of it was something that I kind of changed a bit, but I think I got it from a keynote that was delivered by the CEO of Vox Media in 2013. You should check those guys out. They're probably at the cutting edge of storytelling. How did Acharya ask, how did you raise funds? Okay, so basically that's a long answer because we've raised funds more than once. Initially was with a angel investor who basically we met playing video games. He didn't trust us. So we said, you know what, because you're afraid of this whole dilemma, why don't you just go ahead and give us, we were raising $20,000 on the first round. I wouldn't even call it a round. But what we did was we told him, because of the fact that you don't trust us, we got very creative. We told him, instead of spending $20,000, give us $2,000 a month over the, $2,000 or $1,000? I think $1,000 a month over the next 20 months so that we could keep our operations, running and our lights on. And if he feels like it's a bad idea or it's not going anywhere, to pull out. Now, after that, I'd say a few years down the, not a few years, like a year and a half down the line, we bought those shares back from that same investor. And the acquisition was a bit of a different story. The acquisition went through was because Tavistock was looking at investing in a software development company at the time, and they were interviewing they were having discussions with a few companies here in Colombo, and they were talking about the fact that they were looking for digital marketing capacity and capability within their business. One of the companies that they were in discussions with happens to be a close friend / mentor, and they basically said, you know what, if you're looking and shopping around, you guys would probably want to consider these guys as well. They're pretty good at what they do. And after that, January last year, we met with the team at Tavistock, had a few discussions. We were initially, when I say I was initially hell-bent on not giving over control of the business, because it wasn't just an infusion of cash. It was a straight-up acquisition where they took 51% of the business. So, yeah. And, after those prolonged chats, we decided the right thing to do was really go through that, and he said yes, and here we are. How is it possible to join Surge as a self-taught web designer? Pasindu Ruandania, yes, it is possible to join Surge as a self-taught web designer. I don't think we really care about how you've gained the capabilities that you have, but more along the lines of the fact that you have gained those capabilities. And yeah, so shoot us an email at people@surge.global if you are either a content creator who's good at writing blog posts, you're a designer, an animator, developer, or basically a project manager. Right now, the team is close to, I think it's between 35 and 40. We're looking at scaling up massively and closing off 2019 at about 100 people. So there's obviously space if you're good. Why remove video from the Surge homepage? Okay, you guys are paying a lot of attention. The Surge website is something that changes ridiculously. I get paranoid around but like being still. And what I've noticed is the more you are willing to change, whether it's the website or whether it's whatever it is, it usually ends up adding more to our conversion rate, our sales funnel increases, and we've continuously grown doing that. So one thing we're trying right now is we're simplifying the sales process and we're changing our messaging. So it's not the fact that we kind of removed videos from what we did, but the messaging around how Surge helps businesses with content distribution and insight seemed to be a complicated explanation where businesses that were reading it, that were watching that content, didn't really understand what all of that meant. And they would just watch the video and be slightly confused around what we did. And then they'd have to reach out to us and say, hey, guys, what the hell does any of these stuff mean? So we changed the tagline from sophisticated storytelling for brands to helping businesses grow, which is essentially, if anyone asks what Surge does, it's that it helps businesses grow. And it's a lot easier. Like, sophisticated storytelling sounds very eloquent and sexy and all of that, but if your customer does not understand what that means, it is not helpful. So we decided to, just simplify. And that is why we removed video from the Surge homepage. So it wasn't a problem of video, it was a problem of the messaging and the context in which that video was presented. Hey Luca, how's it going? Long time no see. I think Luca was one of our old buddies when we used to play Ninja Saga back in 2013. Okay, common mistakes made by Sri Lankan entrepreneurs. I wouldn't really classify these stuff as Sri Lankan entrepreneurs, but entrepreneurs in general. I would break it down into the fact that because people love it so much in its, whatever glory, because it's somehow cool to be a dropout and to be a nerd. Oh, look at me, I'm behind a computer, blah, blah, blah. Because of that, they really get carried away about the fact that, and forget the fact that they're actually building a business. You raise funds to generate as much cash as possible, burn through the business, and then really end up not building a product or having a service, which I think is the biggest problem that entrepreneurs have. So you're in this massive Silicon Valley bubble of, oh guys, I'm going to be the next Zuckerberg, or I'm going to be the next Elon Musk, or whatever it is, without understanding, businesses is always about, at the end of the day, it comes down to a P&L, it comes down to a series of transactions which need to justify a model, which need to justify cash flow. And if you can't hire people and pay your bills at the end of the month, you're really not doing a great job. It's funny, after we raised our acquisition round on the 31st of May, we have grown I shouldn't use words like exponential. I should be more specific. We've more than doubled the business size, and we haven't touched a single dollar of investment yet. So we're just really itching to pull the trigger, but it also goes to show you, if you can build a model that's sustainable enough to grow, that matters more than anything else. So remember that you're building a business, not a quote-unquote startup. Dushan, how was the scale of the projects that Surge got during the start? It was really small. I think I also had some concerns and doubts around the fact was, hey, you know what? Am I really allowed to ask for thousands of dollars for the work I was doing because I didn't know what I was capable of, and I didn't know what the industry was capable of. So I was really afraid. I didn't know, and you get a lot of exposure, you grow as a business, and you realize all these other people around you really have no clue what they're doing, and they're just asking for it because someone else asked for it. So I guess that was one of those biggest things, isn't it? Like one of those. There's a Warren Buffett quote on this, where when you start, not Warren Buffett, Benjamin Graham, intelligent investor, when you start trading stocks, you think that you know nothing, and all the brokers around you are these magnificent wizards that have studied for years and years in their life, and they know all of this shit, and you're basically nobody. So you start studying, right? And then you realize, hey, look, I'm slowly understanding what those guys did, and I'm trading at their level. I'm amazing, they're amazing, oh my god, life is good. But the more you really study, and the more you dive deeper, you realize, wait a second, those guys that were trading before really don't know anything, and this entire thing is really a stack of cards. So you go take a step back and you realize you're back to square one. I think you have to go through that journey to understand, hey, look, I'm charging $100 because it really only costs me to do this, but hey, there's this other level, and then there are these levels beyond that I guess comes from exposure and experience. So we started doing really small scale projects because we didn't really understand the levels of opportunity that was out there. We didn't understand how to measure value. So everything we did was based on cost rather than value. Okay, next question. Future of customized website builder companies against DIY website builders. I'm assuming what you mean is companies like Squarespace and Shopify versus businesses that can build your own stuff. I think it's basically two different markets being addressed by two different solutions. It isn't really a competition. Like if you look at Surge, for example, we do both. We build majority of our websites on WordPress because it's easier. We build majority of our client work from e-commerce on Shopify because they've built a really solid platform, and it's easier for us to manage everything. I guess the difference in terms of the human element coming in isn't necessarily for design. It's for a few things. One is the fact that companies that are looking to go big on e-commerce, even though they use Shopify and they can get a $20 theme and install it and run it, they don't have the labor and they don't have the human capital that is required and the experience in the sense of who has done and sold stuff on e-commerce sites before to be able to take it over. So there is that component. Sorry guys, my throat is getting weird. So they haven't gotten through that. So it's really a different segment. As long as you can figure that out and you can understand that, there's a place for all of that and you can really potentially technically serve both, you should be okay. But it's not where one is going to defeat the other. There's always going to be some level of cannibalizing where, people who are on the edge and who are willing to spend $500 but really don't want to go beyond that might make the switch down, and people who really have some tough problems on their hand but they don't have time but they need someone else to do it would go the other way. So yeah, Hasitha's question, importance of timing and place in starting up. I think that's very important, but I guess even if you're a little early, if you can hold yourself to it, you'll be okay. But it's all about risk mitigation, right? Oh god, I just had one sip of Red Bull and then you guys started. It's basically, it's all about not all about Red Bull, sorry guys. It's all about risk mitigation. It's doing your due diligence, really reading about it and strategizing before you jump on something and saying, hey, this is what we need to do. It's funny, this is actually not my first can of Red Bull for the day. I was drinking two, so cheers guys. Coffee or Red Bull? Good question. I honestly should be sponsored by these guys. If anyone's working at Red Bull, please send me a can. It depends on the coffee, really. There's some really killer good coffee out there. Best coffee I've ever had is in this place in Nashville called, god damn it, I forgot the name, but they have this some spiced latte shit that is off the freaking charts, amazing. But most coffee does not rank above Red Bull. So like if you're in the top 15 to 20 percentile of coffee in the world, you will be better than Red Bull. But if you're below that, then there's Red Bull and then there's your rest of the coffee. But that does not take away from coffee. I think coffee is an absolutely amazing beverage that we should all respect. Yeah. So thank you, by the way, for everyone that's very concerned about my health and the fact that I might die from an overdose of caffeine or whatever it is that I do. So yeah. So I think we've covered a lot of questions. What I'll do is I will just continuously blabber to see if there are any more questions. If not, we'll go ahead and finish this video and somehow produce a semi-tilted beginning / video that possibly gets a little better towards the end. But I am sorry about the start, which was not intentional. Facebook screwed me over, because if you go live on the Facebook group thingy and you have your phone tilted, it works. But when you switch to Page Manager by Facebook and then go live, then this thing gets all wonky. So Zuckerberg, this is your fault. But I think we're done. Do we have any more questions, guys? Let's just wait like 10 seconds to see if there's anything else. If there's not, I'm really going to hit that finish button, because I have a few more emails to do, which ironically ties back into the sales process, because today is Sunday night. It's almost going to be Monday in Australia, and I want, as soon as it becomes Monday, for all of their, follow-ups to go in place and everything. Can you elaborate more on the e-commerce space you just spoke about? Also thoughts on it, especially in Sri Lanka, payment gateway problems. Right. Okay. E-commerce space, first is it's probably the most competitive thing out there. I recently found out that about 50-something% of all searches for product purchases actually happen on Amazon.com, which is fascinating. And about 6% happen on eBay, like eBay. So I think, the e-commerce space is massive. I think that everyone gets involved in e-commerce because they feel like they can get involved in drop shipping and make a quick buck without realizing how difficult e-commerce actually is. I've done drop shipping. Some of them have worked, some of them haven't worked, but there's always a 17-year-old with an ad on Instagram that says that they can teach you how to do drop shipping properly. But really, it's a complicated mess. As far as the payment gateway problem in Sri Lanka, it's funny, like there are solutions out there. If you're selling the right product, like at the right price, you can just go to tocheckout.com, sign up for a payment account. There is another platform called Paddle, which is designed for payment gateway. Like the only problem is, because it's Sri Lanka, there is a small price difference where you have to pay more in transaction fees because PayPal isn't there. But even toCheckout for us is almost the same price as PayPal because of the fact that we do enough volume. So I don't think there's a payment gateway problem in Sri Lanka, regardless of the fact that every single person says there's no way to do transactions. There's a ton of ways. It's just that the process takes a few more weeks than for you to take 5 minutes to set up a PayPal account. So I'd say just, really spend that couple weeks if you're really serious about this, so you don't have to worry about like payment gateway issues. Your opinion on education, do you consider it a waste of time? What about studying abroad and stuff? No, I don't think education is a waste of time. I don't think school is a waste of time. So for me, the reason I dropped out was it was a very specific thing. I think education in the current context of it being delivered in Sri Lanka was a massive waste of time for me, because I kind of already knew what I wanted to do. But as long as I think the most important thing is really self-awareness and understanding what it is that you want to do and what it is that you want to achieve, so that you can spend whatever time and energy on learning, focus on honing your craft. Studying abroad for the sake of studying abroad seems like a stupid idea, because every single thing you want to study, you can do it online if you're really serious about it. If you want like some qualification, go to Coursera, spend a couple $1,000s, you'd get a better level of education than you would going abroad for the sake of going abroad, which is what a lot of people do. Tips for anyone planning to start their own businesses. So here's the thing. A lot of this stuff is out there. There's really no value in me telling you guys how to do this. And for one, I haven't done an amazing job at it. I've done some level of work. We've built a business. It's 35, 40 people. It's not massive. The one thing that was probably the most underrated piece of advice that I've ever gotten, that I follow to this day, is the fact that people, regardless of what you do, need to study economics. Because at the end of the day, this is all very fundamental. It's about value, it's about supply, it's about demand. And if you can match these things and you follow the fundamental principles, it doesn't matter how your business, like whatever it is that you're trying to do, your business will work. But you'll also realize that if you play around with these principles and you try to avoid it somehow by trying to be smarter, that also ends up coming back to bite you in the ass. So yeah, that would be my number one tip. Really just spend time studying, because it's amazing the amount of people that completely disregard it. And if you have it, you have the upper hand by a significantly long shot. Any tips to improve communication and presentation? This one is a tricky one because we want to be able to do this within the organization. Not everyone is cut out for it, but ideally communication is so key. It's so important in managing relationship, whether it's with a customer, whether it's with your entire team or whatever it is. I think what we've started doing is that we've been very disciplined around the fact that we wanted to be explicit around our messaging. We wanted to make sure our messages are being conveyed the way we wanted to. And we just follow up and ask, say, hey, did you get what I'm saying? Everything from an email to a phone call, we log it in, and just it's really a lot of following up and practice. I would love to say that there is some, quick, surefire way to get this to work, but I have not been successful in being able to do that. What is the best advice that you can give for an undergraduate who is planning to start in digital marketing? And I'm assuming business, because it just says see more and it cuts out. I think the best advice is build a product or a service and try to sell it using the services that you're trying to sell your customer. If you can find the combination that works, I think you'll build an inherently better business and a better product. You should really take the time to try and fail, and that would end up being, we did this and it worked for us really well. And I tell this to everyone who's even trying to join a business, is really try selling something on the internet, because it's not as simple as people think it is, but it's also not as complicated as people think it is. And once you figure out that formula for whatever it is that you're selling, you realize the value of price. You'll get a better understanding of how to price, how to mark up value, how to do operations, how to set up processes, how to, standard operating procedures, all of these stuff. So I think the most important advice would be really just sell something on the internet. It's a fascinating experience. Okay, do we have anything else? 9 o'clock, I did an hour. I was only supposed to do 20 minutes of the initial talking and then 20 minutes of Q&A, but I've gone slightly over, so why stop now? Should I continue, or I think we should wrap up? Because I was supposed to wrap up before, but I'm just going to entertain one more question. So, final question, guys. Go ahead and ask it, and we'll call it a night, and I will let you all go home, but you are probably already home, and sleep and get ready, because tomorrow is Monday, and Monday is an amazing day. Just, you can ask random questions. It doesn't even have to be related to SEF or digital marketing or customer acquisition at this point. Just ask anything. Yes, no? Did I miss anything? Now a lot of Red Bull questions. Future of customized. That's the weird sound I make while I scroll. Sorry, guys. I think we've got everything. Okay, so we are done. Thank you all for watching. I will see you eventually on another thing. If this is the first time you guys are watching Sustainable Education Foundation, follow their page. I'm not even getting paid to say this. I should get paid to say this, but it's a non-profit, so follow their page. They have some of these cool talks coming up. If you're interested in these stuff, if you are from SEF and you don't know what I do, my name's Bhanuka. I create weird stuff on the internet apart from running my business on Instagram, which is at Banoob. So I think there's going to be a comment somewhere or something somewhere. So thank you all for watching. Hope you guys have a fascinating weekend, or hope you had a fascinating weekend. I will see you again soon. Cheers, guys.